Anna, thanks for joining us. In the press conference recently, you spoke about this being the start of a new cycle. So I wanted to dig into that a little bit today. First of all, what does that mean to you, ending an old cycle and starting this new one?
My first thought is difficult. It's never easy to be part of a transition because it comes with emotions, but it's also challenging, and that makes it very interesting. So it's a nice part of it's nice to be part of this, because I hope and I assume that if I leave, and whenever that might be, people remember me for the fact that we've won the league in my time over here, but that I also played a big part in creating a new cycle with very good players that are able to hopefully win just as much or even more than the ones that have already left or are gonna leave us this summer.
In the PSG home game, you mentioned afterwards how bright the future is for this club and for this team. What was it in that game in particular that gave you that optimism of what you're building and all those things you mentioned, that philosophy?
No, I think we were all very impressed about how well PSG played in Paris, and that we are then 1 week later be able to have more ball possession than them. I think we generated 21 shots, had a very good XG. Were close to getting a penalty, so I think we were close to beating them, and I think a lot is being said about last season, how strong the team was and how strong the team looked, but I think this season we were even better in our home game than we were last season. So I see a big development with certain players compared to the start of the season. Unfortunately, of course, during that game we saw one of the players that has done so well for us this season already, that we brought in, had to go off with a big injury. But yeah, I saw us at the highest level being able to press as aggressive as Paris Saint-Germain did. Physically, we were really strong. Big difference, in my opinion, especially with the signings we made compared to the start of the season, especially if you take in mind that we played on Saturday. So 7 days, and then the third game playing Paris Saint-Germain at home and playing in that intensity is something that, if you combine that to the quality we showed, and then I mean with the chances we created, then I think there are a lot of positives to take from that game.
You highlighted there some of the new players coming in and their bedding in period that they've had. Was there a thinking in the summer that you wanted a slight shift in the profile of player you went for, maybe slightly more controlled? Because it feels like some of the players, like Florian Wirtz's a good example, a slightly different profile to what we've seen at Liverpool maybe in your first season.
Well, the last thing that would come to my mind if I think about Florian Wirtz, Hugo Ekitike and Alexander Isak is control. The first thing I think about is chance creation, special players, flair.
But the style
maybe slightly different than most of the players that are signed either for us in the past or at other clubs, because the most profiles are big and strong, and we indeed went with these players. Those are different types, so that probably tells you even more about the identity we want to bring in or we want to create. We know how important set pieces are in this league, of course. And that's not the first thing where you think about if you think about Florian Wirtz or Hugo Ekitike, maybe Alexander Isak to a certain extent. But we know how important that is, but we also want to bring in players that are a joy to watch. And now it's up to us to make the team that strong, to make them so much stronger that we are able, which we, I think, in my opinion, already are, able to compete also in terms of intensity levels, physical power, every 3 days, and then bring the best out of these players that can be so creative.
And when you think about that new cycle and the players that you've implemented, did you kind of expect as a manager for it to be a little bit more difficult, or did you think it would be quite smooth sailing from last season?
The honest answer is that when we made the signings, I thought the last smooth sailing is, I think, the word you used. But after the first games and knowing when we signed them, so of course Florian we signed already really early, so he had a proper pre-season. But Alex came in 1 or 2 days before the 1st of September. Hugo came in a bit later. So and you never know how much of a difference it is between Premier League and the leagues they came from. So they needed adaptation, and of course with Alex that was down to the fact that he was not in a perfect condition when we signed him, and unfortunately he got injured afterwards. With Florian we straight away saw his quality, same like Hugo, but I think it's also fair for me to say, without criticizing them, that they had to adapt to playing every 3 days at Premier League and Champions League level, but they did that because they worked really hard, and as a result of that I think we saw second half of the season that they were much better prepared for that.
Naturally then, as part of the ending of the cycle, players leave. We know that Mo Salah at the end of the season, Andy Robertson. Who would you say are the leaders that are emerging, the newer leaders?
There are signs of players who could do that, but I think as long as the leaders are still in the building, and it's clear and obvious that Virgil, Mo, Ali, Robbo are the leaders of this team, then I think it's also normal that you don't really see yet who would fulfill that role next season. You have an idea about it, who those players could be, but as long as the leaders are in, I think it's also normal that they are still the leaders. Yeah.
Would you like to see more change over the next few months, looking ahead to summer as well, or are you pretty content with how your squad looks and then it just needs time?
I don't think in numbers, but it's clear that these two are leaving, Mo and Robbo, and so yeah, that already means change, and quite a big change, because these two have been so influential over the last 9 years at this club. But at this moment of time, my main focus is on the derby game coming and the games after, and as it's normal in football, the mid to long term is done by a sports director, and of course we are in talks. But my main focus is on the current results, because we want to qualify for the Champions League next season.
So in the short term, then, of course, you mentioned the Merseyside derby, some other huge games coming up, Man United away as well. What would you like to see in this short term period?
What I've seen, almost every game of this team, knowing that they have to play every 3 days and constantly the same players, the fighting spirit that they've shown so many times during this season, where we had so many setbacks. So people might sometimes argue like, those 5 minutes or those 10 minutes, or why do they give away so many times a lead? But they've given everything, which we also saw against Paris Saint-Germain again. And in between we had to play Fulham away at Paris Saint-Germain. It was so difficult for us, but they never gave up. So maybe at this moment of time there might be a bit of focus on the 20 minutes that we didn't play our best at City, where we conceded 4 goals. But yeah, 1 week later, I don't think any Liverpool fan is interested in that. But at Stamford Bridge, were also 15 minutes where City scored 3. This is what the best, in my opinion, the best teams in open play can do. And at this moment of time, for me, those are Paris Saint-Germain and Man City. So this can happen, but the players have always given everything, and I think that's normal if you wear this shirt. But looking at the setbacks we faced, that it's constantly the same players that have to play 90 minutes, then they should get more credits for that.
And finally, when we think about this new cycle and the excitement that you've spoken about for the future, what would your message be to fans who, we know they're so used to success at this incredible club? So what would you say to them to get them excited about this new era for Liverpool?
I think they are excited if they are watching the players we've signed already, and because they've shown this season how special they can be. And I know it doesn't work like this, but the amount of goals we've conceded in extra time, that will never happen another season again. That's impossible that it happens again. So that would lead to 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 points more already. And then looking at all the injuries we've had, and I can come up with so many other things, I think that we've been very, very unlucky this season. We can easily do much better next season just by being less unlucky. And I think there's much more to come, so it will work both ways.